Well, hello and welcome to the show. In the studio today, I am joined by Mr. Todd Hazelwood. How are you, buddy?
I'm fantastic. Thanks for having me in the studio today.
Mate, delighted to have you here. Naturally, you were early, and naturally, I was still setting things up. So you've been very patient with me this morning as we put the thing together, because our last outing for the podcast, we attempted to do our first outside broadcast, and we got smashed by the supercell that came through, and we turned a 6x3 tent into spaghetti. So that did not go well.
We're much safer under here today.
Mate, that did not go well. Actually, in here the other day, we did actually have to stop recording because a storm hit so hard. This joint's got a tin roof, and we're here listening, and we're like, what is that noise? So, yeah, we have had a few weather interruptions on the pod, but it's a beautiful day today. And, Todd, I'm really stoked to have you on because I've followed your journey, and I've followed particularly closely this year. And for people that aren't familiar with the name, Todd's pretty good at wheeling a car around, mate. That's probably how would you introduce yourself when you meet somebody? What do you tell them?
Oh, just a glorified taxi driver, I guess.
Glorified taxi driver.
Go from A to B very quickly.
That's the one, very quickly.
But yeah, look, I guess for me, been really fortunate to be part of the top tier of Australian motorsport in the Supercars Championship now for 6 years. And just wrapped up our 2023 Supercars Championship. So couldn't pick a better time to sit down and have a chat and talk all about it.
Well, that's what I thought. I thought it's the end of the year. You've got like a handful of weeks, theoretically. I can't really call them off. But, you know, you get a little bit of downtime. Is that sort of how it works?
Yeah, I guess the biggest thing is just getting away from all the stresses. That's probably the biggest thing. Between Christmas and New Year, got that nice little break where we can just switch off from the world and try and avoid answering the phone too much and just spend time with loved ones because unfortunately when you spend a lot of time on the road, we don't get to have that quality time. But it's still pretty stressful time, still putting a lot of plans in place for next year. And next year's championship for me next year kicks off very early. So we'll be testing in probably early, if not middle of January. And the preparation that you need to be able to execute a good year, off-season is king. So still be a very busy boy over that period. And I'm probably a bit of a sucker for punishment myself. Always seem to keep myself very busy. But always say, better be busy than bored, right? That's not a bad way to go on about it.
I agree with that one, mate. I'm no good if I'm just sitting around with my own thoughts. I'm far better.
Yeah, exactly.
To keep my days nice and busy. But with that kind of schedule and it's really been 6 years in Supercars.
Yeah, it's 6 years at top tier. And spent another 4 years in the level 2 category of Super 2 Championship as well. So 2014, I basically got introduced to the world of supercars, and it's been a journey. It's been a bit of a blurry time, but it goes fast. Like it's hard to believe that it's like as you said, 6 years already, and blink of an eye, it's all done. So
bloody wild, mate. And that's why I'm super grateful that you've made some time for my little show. And we also had to point out the fact that Ben Nothling was very excited that you're getting to sit where he has also once sat.
Yep, the Ben Nothling.
The Ben Nothling. If you haven't found his Facebook page yet, you'll get to know him soon enough. He's a wonderful man who actually learned how to pull a tyre on and off for you this year.
He did, yeah. He got a rattle gun in his hand for the first time, and we put him to the test, and he did an exceptional job.
Mate, he did. He did really well at the old Zutz.
For a man that really hasn't spent most of his life on tools, and he was like a duck to water and embraced that competitive, I guess, high pressure environment, which he's, I guess, known for in other things that he's done in his life. So that was a great addition to our team, and for someone that flew in, flew out over the course of the year, and he didn't let us down all year with good pit stops. So that was really cool.
Little superstar. Have you seen his cardboard cutouts yet?
No.
Oh, mate, I'll show you those after the
show.
Sounds
interesting.
Now, mate, obviously you don't start your racing career at the top of the tree. Motor racing is one of those things that is a fairly terrible disease, and when it latches into you, it just spends all your money, all your headspace, all your time, all your emotional energy. But the problem is it's filled with great people, and it's a bloody good time, and that makes it really dangerously addictive.
It certainly does. It certainly consumes all of your life, all of your time, all of your money, as you said. But for me, hey, I wouldn't want to be doing anything else. You know, I'm really fortunate for myself where I had a dream as a young kid, and essentially living out those dreams now, which is really cool. Not many people would be able to be in the position that I've been in. So yeah, incredibly grateful, and yeah, there's thousands of people that have contributed to that success and that journey over the years as well. So yeah, it's for me. I've still got unfinished business, still things I want to achieve in the sport. But as you said, motorsport, being a car enthusiast as well, you know, there's so many layers in the automotive industry that it just sucks you in, and you just becomes a love for what you do, and
So I said,
might as well do what you enjoy rather than being stuck in an office punching numbers. And
that's it. I make the Godfather joke. You know, just when I thought I was out, they pull me back in. Like you can't. If you're obsessed, you just can't help yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
You find ways. I'm like, I'll just come and help. You know, I'll just and then bam, you're like doing seasons.
Exactly.
But tell me, mate, where were you born? Where's young Todd? Tell me that story.
Young Todd. He proud South Aussie, so grew up in Adelaide as a young kid, and did my first laps around a race circuit at 6 weeks old. It was at the 1995 Australian Grand Prix.
What?
So got chucked in the back seat, had a baby blanket thrown over the top of me, and went for a lap around the circuit when Dad was there, part of the Dutton's Grand Prix rally. So
get out of town. So
I guess you could
so
say
it's your old boy's fault.
Yeah, I guess I was destined from birth to have no hope.
He totally ruined you. 6 weeks old
And,
at the Grand Prix. What a classic.
Yeah, that's it. So it all started from there, and when I turned 7, I got my first go-kart, and the rest is history, I guess.
So is the old boy into cars?
Yeah. Well, Dad was
mad
actually
for
into motorbikes, so he did
Right.
desert racing as a kid. Both my parents grew up on farms, and Dad was right into his desert racing, and tried to do whatever he could with what he had, and he didn't really have the support from anyone to pursue his dream, but he just stuck at it, and he actually badly broke his back just before I was born. So there was a bit of a two-wheel ban in the house, even though both Mum and Dad were like bike crazy and love MotoGP, and the Mick Doohans and Wayne Gardners of the world. There was sort of the posters up around the family home, but just fans of motorsport. They loved their supercars. Went to the Adelaide 500 religiously every year, and I guess from my point of view, I grew up around going to the Colin Grove Hill Climb or Malala nearly every second weekend. So I was destined to I guess do what I do today. But there was nothing for me. I loved it. I loved the smells. I loved the sights, and just got absolutely immersed to it at such a young age.
You got any brothers and sisters?
Yeah, I got an older sister.
Yeah.
So she works in motorsport as well. So she actually works for Motorsport Australia.
No.
And has done since 2015 now, I think it is.
Far
So we've all got the motorsport.
The whole
bug.
family's in it. You couldn't escape it.
Exactly.
That's a classic. That's really nice though. So you guys always went to those sorts of things as a family. What was the family car? Was that something that?
Yeah, we actually had a Nissan Pintara, so that was the original family car. But I guess the family jewel car was actually my mum's dad. So my grandfather, he brought it brand new as a 1976 XC Rally Pack, Pine and Lime, and Dad brought that off Grandpa, I think in 92, and sort of did a half a resto on it and cleaned it up and did it for the hill climbs and track days. So at Malala doing super sprints and stuff. So I guess hence where the love of probably Ford come into the family, or sort of brainwashed at birth with, we're a Ford family and this is who we support. But Dad loved his Nissans as well. So we always had like Nissan Pathfinders growing up, and they still have it today. It's got 440,000 on the dial. So
pretty hard to go wrong there.
Yeah, that's it. So I guess between Nissans and Fords, so that was what was always parked in the driveway at home.
That was how it always worked. Because I always find that stuff fascinating. It's always interesting because we're a Ford family. And we had, the old boy just had Ford station wagons as his work car. And the thing I tootle around in these days is a 97 EL XR6.
Awesome.
And that's just everything I ever wanted.
Yeah.
Because they're just, when I was a younger man, I'm just like, that is just the coolest looking thing I'd ever seen.
Yeah.
And that's funny.
And it just
that's what you want.
It makes you feel home, I guess, in some ways as well. It's everything you know. And it's funny how cars can, I guess, pull on the emotions of how you feel and what you want in life.
They really do, and they tell lovely stories. But, mate, schooling in Adelaide, how did you go through your schooling years, or
Not well.
no? They
No,
were
I
just
was,
a distraction.
I was dedicated for school, but I spent so much time away from school and doing a lot of homework on the road, and especially back when I was go-karting from the age of 7 all the way up to 15 years old. So we were racing, almost every weekend at the height of my karting career, and most of those events were all out of South Australia. So we were driving in and out interstate all the time. And when Dad was at home working, or because he worked for the railways, so he'd be at work, and Mum would be driving me around the countryside and towing the trailer around and sleeping in a tent on the side of the road. And it certainly taught me a lot outside of life, I guess, or outside of school, I should say. What I learned on the road about life skills and how to save money, how to network, and it all started at a very tender age, to be fair. And it taught me so much more than probably what I ever could have got taught at school, which is, I think, where not that I get involved in politics, but I think the education system's got a lot to say for itself, because they don't teach you the real things in life and what you need to know when you step out of school. How do you survive? What do you need to do to essentially chase your dreams and hustle and get through what can be dark days and dark nights. And
I got no arguments with you there, mate. The little fella got his report card and he was like, "Dad, did I get any A's?" And I said, "Oh, mate, you didn't, but that's okay." I said, "Mate, all you got to do is try your best." Because, there's a lot of stuff in the curriculum, and I understand why they teach it, but it doesn't help. It doesn't help set you up. And you look at it and you go, it's missing that practical experience. And
And I guess for me in that school period, what was really frustrating for me is that there were scholarships in place for AFL and cricket, especially South Australia being a proud AFL state. And for me, going racing, going go-karting, no one understood it. And, I was sort of labelled as the kid that was never at school, and the teachers didn't want to support me. They kept telling me that I need to spend more time at school. And even though I was doing the homework and I was actually doing really well in my grades, but they couldn't understand the whole karting. They just saw it as a hobby. And for me, at a very young age, it was very much a career. I had sights set on being where I wanted to be today, from sort of the age of 9, 10 years old. So it was a huge commitment at such a young age. And
it really is.
It was frustrating not to get that support. But it was funny. Once I got out of school, and I actually got part of a reality TV show, which I won, and that sort of got my first foot in the door of the Supercars program.
Really?
And all of a sudden, all these accolades started coming out of the school trying to claim who I was. And for me, that was quite frustrating, because
you'd be real dirty.
It was sort of like you didn't want to support me at all. And then when the roles reversed, it was.
And then they go, "We're so proud of our alumni.
We're so proud of the
guy
that we never supported." So but that was school, I guess. But
now before you accelerate past that, I'm actually really interested, because I'm just fascinated by all these sorts of things. So as a 7-year-old boy, do you have recollections of how that conversation went with mum and dad going, "Hey, can we go karting?" Do you have recollections around how all that came together?
A bit blurry in my younger years, but I guess it's nearly 20 years ago now. I was really competitive by nature. I always had to win, and I think mum and dad, I didn't even really need to tell them. I think they just sort of knew, in a way, and that was never from any pressure from mum and dad either. That's where they were, I guess, really good with me. They were always probably trying to calm me down.
Yeah, right. Because did you try some other stuff? Because as you said, there's AFL and all the other things. Did you go and kick a footy and try those? And
I did AFL when I was 6, and I sort of enjoyed it, hanging out with mates. But where I got frustrated with AFL is that you're relying on everyone else for the result. Whereas I felt like in go-karts, I was the sole operator. I was the one behind the wheel that could make a difference.
It was up to you.
Obviously, you still need to prepare the go-kart properly and all that sort of stuff. But it really felt for me like it was an individual sport, and I could get the most out of myself and get the rewards from that. And I still love my cricket, and I did cricket all the way up until I was probably about 13, 14 years old, and didn't do it well because I was, my main commitment was always go-karts. So I think the last year I played cricket, I played 2 or 3 matches out of 14 or something. So I was hardly ever there. But
you're one of those team guys that you're annoyed at.
Yeah, exactly. So so it was just there more to have a bit of fun with my mates. But yeah, go-karts was always the sole dream, and yeah, I put every ounce of energy into that even at a young age.
Because back then, how many rounds a year do you think you would have been doing, as like in those earlier years as well?
Yeah, I think from probably the age of 10 all the way up to probably 13, 14 years old, we're racing 30 to 35 plus times a year.
Bloody hell.
And particularly in the later years, from probably 12 to 15, nearly every second weekend was interstate.
Holy.
So yeah, out of those 30 events, probably only 8 to 10 of them were in South Australia. So it was a lot of time away from home. So you'd pack the trailer up, and we'd leave either late Thursday night after school and practice, race Saturday, Sunday, drive home Sunday, be back for school Monday morning. So yeah, there was some crazy adventures that we used to do back in the day, but that was all part of the journey, and that was the sort of dedication it took to get where we are.
And for people listening who don't understand, and they might have gone and paid $90 to go and do, 30 minutes of go-karting, unless you've been involved in go-karting, you probably don't comprehend how advanced it is. I was shocked when I found out what's required and the sort of money and the sort of engineering that's required on a kart.
Yeah, it's
how hard were you pushing those things?
Oh, it's full on.
Yeah.
And we were doing everything ourselves. So we had the roller door up during the week and working on the go-karts after school nights and preparing them, and it's a huge amount of work, to run at the front competitively, and you need the best engines, the best chassis. So we had factory support from one of Australia's leading karting suppliers, and we had a dedicated engine builder who was tuning our engines to the thinnest of thous to get the absolute advantage wherever we could, and everything was maximised. So I guess go-karts is really, I guess, the Formula One of our world. Everything's maximised. Obviously, karting is very simple and complex compared to cars, but every single element of a go-kart is maximised, and we're talking the smallest of tolerances to get the thinnest advantage. And when you've got something that only might have anywhere between 10 to 15 horsepower and something that only weighs 60 kilos, everything has got like a magnified aspect to it. So you really the attention to detail you need to prepare a go-kart and do it well is and the reason why it's so competitive is because of that. So if you've never been before, you should go out to Ipswich and watch the Australian Kart Championship round, because it's super competitive. And whether that's kids that are 7 years old or guys that are in their 30s and 40s, are still it's really interesting.
Yeah, I didn't realise how wound up they were, and I didn't realise what went into the engines. And, to me, I guess as Joe Public, you go, oh, it's just a bloody Honda lawnmower engine on the back there. But they are not. I mean, the R&D going into these things, and as you said, your engine builders, they are taking them right out to the edge.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, like our two-stroke motors. So, from our point of view, we're rebuilding an engine nearly every second event, putting new pistons in, new piston rings, and we're rebuilding carbies nearly after every session. So cleaning, because everything was maximised. So we didn't run filters to try and get maximum fuel flow, and you'd be cleaning screens out of the carby after every race, and managing your fuel, managing the temperature of your fuel, adjusting your fuel ratio depending on your air density and Fahrenheit and all that sort of stuff. So wow. Everything was maximised, and so it taught me so much. Yeah,
well, it does, doesn't it?
Even though I don't have a ticket to my name, I'm actually a failed light mechanic by trade. But in karting, I learned so much, and
and having to do it all yourself, like having to spin the spanner yourself, and as a young bloke too, you just jump in and go.
Yeah, you just jump in, get it done. Yeah, and you learn. You learn through failures, and but still, I guess karting was like doing my apprenticeship in motorsport world. So it taught me everything from understanding the feeling of understanding setups, and when you're making changes, we used to change the axle tube and thickness to make the kart handle better, and all these little things that you start picking up your senses of what does what. Adjusting tire pressures, running the kart in the wet, what do you do to try and make the kart flex and all that sort of stuff. So you start really understanding and getting a bit of an engineering mind, mechanical sympathy, understanding how things work at a very tender age, which I think is such an awesome quality to have for, when you see kids racing around today, to have that ability and then just getting hands-on. I really enjoyed I still do, still working on the equipment and fine-tuning your baby so you can get the ultimate result. There's no better satisfaction.
When did your karting team get bigger than just the family? Did you ever bring in other people? Did that happen?
Yeah, so we had a couple of at the later years. We had probably two key people that come into the fold. One of them being Aaron Jenner, who first, I guess, sort of sighted me from a distance and was watching what we were doing. And yeah, he was an amazing guy. Done a lot of international karting himself, and yeah, he'd come away when Dad was working. He'd come away and come into state with us, and he'd be an extra set of hands because I was racing 2 go-karts at the time. 2 different classes. So, while I was out racing one kart, he'd be making changes on the other and vice versa and changing tyres. And Mum would be mixing fuel and my sister would be doing the scoring and taking down all the notes. And yeah, it was such a big family effort. It was really cool. And then I guess, yeah, another man that come to the 2 other guys that come to the fold was a guy called Lee Harrison, also Johnny Dankowski. So, yeah, between those 3 men in the later years of my karting, they were the ones that were helping keep the dream alive, and there's a bit of free labour going on, all that sort of stuff. So they really dedicated their time to help achieve my dreams at a young age.
So they just saw the potential. That was what they saw, a young bloke working hard. And
yeah, I think so. And they just saw that our whole family was just committed, and they sort of become part of our family really. So we went on road trips from Adelaide to Darwin, and Darwin to Mackay and things like that. So we spent a lot of time on the road together, sleeping out of a tent, and we had a lot of fun. It was cool. Looking back at that, it was where we just purely went racing. There was no sponsorships, there was no marketing, there was no social media back then. It was just you and your trailer and your go-kart, and we just did everything we could to go win races. And looking back, like, we did win a lot. Like, our success rate in that 10-year period was huge. Yeah, really fun memories.
Yeah, it does. It sounds like a lovely time because I met your mum and dad. I managed to wrangle my way in when you were racing down in Tassie. And when I was chatting to your folks, I was shocked because they just sort of said, because look, probably the incorrect assumption, but you sort of wildly assume that there's probably a bit of family money going into these things. And your old boy's like, yeah, nah. Like, because they're, just normal working people.
Just,
it's not big family
citizens.
business, paying for your drive. Like, you bloody worked.
Yeah,
like,
that's it. No, and we had to hustle from day one. So, no word of a lie that anything you do in motorsport's not cheap, and whether that's go-karts or supercars, you got the same challenges. So, like my dad's a proud, hardworking man. He worked at the rail for 45 years, and Mum worked in a bakery and did other bits and pieces and a lot of volunteer and community work. And we certainly didn't have any family business or major backer underpinning what we were doing. So, yeah, from a young age, we had to get pretty creative of how we could save funds and get the funds to go racing. So, in South Australia, it was back then it was a 5-cent can and bottle collection. So the old bottles, we used to call it our junior clubman fund, which was a class at the time. So, and then we started selling the fundraiser chocolates, so the Freddos and Caramellos at school. So I was actually nicknamed as Freddo Frog at school because I'd always be with the chocolates, and that was actually to help the fundraising with the schools. Wow. So in high school, I actually sort of turned into a little bit of a business where I was selling anywhere between sometimes, between 100 and 150 chocolates a day. And, that was obviously, good cash and, all the little things that we used to do to try and raise money to go racing. So, yes, I guess, from a young age, you certainly become more aware of the fact that to success in the motorsport industry, you need to be set up as a business. And I was probably pretty lucky to, I guess, get that reality check at a young age and started working out what do I need to do essentially to make it in this industry. You obviously need to be fast, you need to be winning races, but you also need to be able to talk well, you need to be able to raise money, you need to be able to represent sponsors and yada, yada, yada. So we basically created this pie chart, and how do we maximize everything on this pie chart to give ourselves every chance of succeeding in this industry. And and basically it still hasn't stopped. We're still hustling. You're still, you're always still working. Obviously now it's a lot different because I'm representing brands and working with sponsors and people that are putting in, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, and millions of dollars of money to essentially for us to go racing. So it is a multi-million-dollar business that we run now today. From what started from humble beginnings of collecting cans and selling sausages and selling chocolates.
And that story, I think is one that I think is very, very important to tell, because there is obviously a perception that the only way in is with big bank accounts. But seeing what you guys have done and the way that you've put it together, and then obviously the way that you hold yourself and the way that you support your sponsors, I look at that and I go, that's a real credit to what you and your family have built. And mate, it's an example to people who go, oh, I wish I could go racing. I go, you can. This is what it takes.
But you need to work bloody hard if you want to.
Work real
and
hard.
look, and that was I guess the mindset we always had. We don't get me wrong. There was so many people saying, "Oh, Hazelwood, you just wasting your money. Like put Todd into get him set up in a make him be an engineer. He's still working the business, but you're still working motorsport. But he'll get paid and this, that, and the other." There was so many external distractions all the time, and we don't get me wrong. We had our challenges. Like we had some tense times at home. I remember Bloom with Dad, basically saying we need to take a loan out so we can buy another set of tyres. And as a 14, 15-year-old, that's a tough conversation to have with your parents. So, we did it tough, but at the same time, we did make it, and we got a lot further. We always believed that we could do it, and we always believed, I believed that I had the ability and had the skills to be able to do the job. But it was just that single-minded, narrow-minded approach where we just had to just fully commit and not look left, not look right, just keep falling forward. That was always our mindset. You can always fall down, you can always have a bad day, but as long as you're falling forward, don't fall backwards, fall forward. And that was the only mindset that was going to make it happen. So it's mindset's a big thing in this world, and you just need to embrace the hustle. That's why I keep telling myself now when we have even now, still have a lot of bad days, and probably more bad days than good days in our industry. So you need to keep reminding yourself that you just got to keep hustling, embrace it, and things may fall in your favour. It might not be this year, it might not be next year, but it might be 2 years away before dominoes start to fall in my favour, and who knows what will happen off that. But I've still got some unfinished business in the world of motorsport and some goals I want to achieve. So I'll keep hustling until that's done.
Because I think that they're extraordinary stories. I really am, and it's why, as I said, it's why I was so excited to have you come on here to sort of talk about these things, because I've spent a lot of years in and around motorsport, and I have a lot of people that talk to me about, my business being marketing and comms and that sort of stuff. They want to go, how can I do this and how can I raise more money? And the thing that I find people miss largely is how much work you've got to put into yourself. Yeah. And how much you need to, as you did with your pie chart, you looked at all the things you need to identify and all the areas you need to be good at this, and then attack all of them.
Yeah, and not do it just half-assed either. And it's pretty simple advice, but great advice that I always remember Dad telling me. He goes, son, it's pretty simple. Just look at what everyone's doing and just do it better. And really, it is just as simple as that. Here in Australia, we're very lucky as a country where really there's opportunities everywhere for anyone, but you got to work hard. You got to sacrifice. You can't, have nights out with your mates when you're in the position where you got no money to your name and you're living off 2-minute noodles. And we literally did that. I remember living off $4.64 a week for years, and so let's drive to work. So I had to work 12 hours, and then I still had to try and reinvest and plan and do everything behind the scenes after hours. And you don't, I guess, you don't have a life, but define what is life. Life is about what you want to achieve. So if you want to achieve what you want to achieve, you got to have that sacrifice. And your mates might get annoyed that you're not spending time with them, or if you've got a missus that might not understand. You go through all those challenges. But
there's a price to be paid, isn't there?
There's always a price. So it's a very selfish way of going about it, but sometimes you have to be. The one thing I probably struggle with the most is how much you have to rely on people externally to make things happen. You're always asking for favours, because really, from my point of view, I had no other option. If I didn't rely on people funding me and sponsors and fundraising and people putting in their hands in their pockets to help fuel my dream, I wouldn't be sitting here having this conversation. So that's probably the one thing I still struggle with today. But that's what makes the world go around as well. So really fortunate to have some lovely and amazing people that got behind me and backed me and kept me on the journey.
Because when did you step out of karts? What was the transition there?
Yeah, so it was a long transition.
Yeah.
So I actually won a scholarship in part of the kart team that I was running for at the time. They handpicked a kid from every state to test a Formula Ford, and went to the test day. Went really well, and I got handpicked to then get a free race meeting in a Formula Ford in a state series. So that was sort of, I guess, my first foot in the door with a team. Really, I guess, progressing my career in motorsport outside of karting. So I was 14 years old at the time, just turned 15 when I did the round in Formula Ford. Did the first round, we got second on debut, which was really cool, but we had no money. Like, we were like, okay, we can't do round 2. So I was like, all right, cool. All right, we need to start smartening up here now. So we really weaned off our kart program. I think we only raced 7 times that year, just did the major events, a few state titles, and we won a couple, which was cool, and basically fundraised like crazy. So we were, and that's where I was already selling chocolates at school, but all those other bits and pieces. But then we started reaching out to sponsors, started working on proposals and basically door knocking, walking around the streets. Like, I didn't have a license, so I had to get mum to drop me off in an industrial estate area. And I'd literally walk from door to door, banging on doors with my proposal and basically begging for money.
Bloody hell.
So that was...
At 15 years old?
Yeah, at 15 years old, so 14, 15. And we took a loan and bought our first race car. So it was an old crusty shitbox that we probably shouldn't have bought, but we did, and it cost us a lot more money in the long term. But we didn't know what we didn't know at that point. We didn't have a lot of support and direction. We sort of were learning on the fly a little bit. But got my first shot in a Formula Ford in the state series, and Victorian state series that was. We raced in, when was that, 2012. And that was a tough year because we had no money and couldn't afford to test. We couldn't afford tyres, and it was frustrating because I went from racing 30 times a year to then 5.
In a dialed car that you knew backwards, that you developed over X number of years.
I knew I could jump in any track anywhere around the country and do it well. And
driving
a car that all of a sudden I was in a race car driving twice as fast on open circuits and competing against guys that were spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to our shoestring budget. So I reckon that was probably the toughest year that we ever had. Well, one of the toughest, I should say.
What's a Formula Ford round cost? Because I always think it's nice to share.
It certainly varies. Like for us, we were racing, I think we had a budget of about 70,000 to do 6 events.
Gotcha.
And a couple of test days, whereas some guys were spending $250,000. So that was sort of the price difference that we're up against, and a car that was old as well.
Yeah.
But we got some success, and it was good. And then got gifted an opportunity where I could run in the Australian Formula 3 Championship the following year into 2013. So it was
And what's the step for people that are listening that don't necessarily understand? What's the difference between a Formula Ford and Formula 3?
Yeah, so Formula Ford's basically your entry level out of go-karts into circuit racing. So it's an open wheeler. You got no front wing, no rear wing. You got a groove tyre, so the car moves around a lot, but still got good power to weight ratio. You got a little Duratec Ford engine in the back of them, so they go 1600, so they go pretty good. But the Formula 3, proper wings and slicks car, high downforce. Probably one of the best race cars I've ever driven. Actually,
so that's the big step is you're going into an aero car.
Going to an aero car, trusting the aero, it's big commitment. And so I was still living in Adelaide. It was my last year of school in 2013, so I was still in year 12. Just started a light mechanical apprenticeship as well, and was then prepping the Formula 3 race car in a workshop at Wingfield there with Artec Motorsport. So Ian Richards, he was a wise old man and taught me a lot, and taught me how to lay carbon fibre, and we made our own floors and learned a lot in the back sheds there with him and Rico. He was a great man. And same thing, we were still running on a shoestring budget. Did, I think it was 6 or 7 events around the country, running in the Australian Formula 3 National Championship, which we got second in, which was really cool. And it was really at that crossroads moment. Like we had the backing of Fujitsu, so they backed me in my last year of karting, Formula Ford and Formula 3. And I remember having a conversation with Chris Jewell, who was managing that Cool Driver program at the time, what it was called. And I was essentially looking for the next Scott McLaughlin. So Scott McLaughlin had just won the Super 2 Championship to then step up into the main series, and I was on that trajectory basically. And unfortunately, that funding stopped at the end of that year, and we're really at the point now. We've got no money. We've already mortgaged the house once. What are we going to do? And we actually had Rico was really pushing me hard to go overseas and chase the European dream, which was something that I really wanted to do. I was really embracing that. Hey, if we can do this, we can really take this on. But what I then realised is then how bloody expensive it was to go racing in Europe, and I felt like that really, I guess, shot myself in the foot and really shot my dreams down a little bit. We just simply weren't well connected enough. We didn't have the ability to, I guess, link up with people overseas, get the backing that you needed to go over there from Australian businesses. Like, we're talking not just hundreds of thousands of dollars, we're talking millions of dollars to go racing in support categories. And that's just in Formula 3, let alone when you go to Formula 2, which is north of 3-4 million euro. That's a lot of cash. And we just,
It's a bloody lot of Freddo Frogs, mate.
It's a lot of Freddo Frogs. And, it basically was a reality check of where we were. And at that time, I actually got approached to be part of a reality TV show, which was essentially, it was called the Shannon Supercars Showdown. And what it was to try and scout a new up-and-coming supercar talent. And for this particular year, so Cam Waters won it the first season. So the third season running, it was actually run by Ford Performance Racing, which was the factory Ford supercar team at the time. So Mark Winterbottom and Will Davison were both, I guess, head coaches. So I was on Will Davison's team. Got through and had a series of challenges, won the Formula 4 challenge and a few other bits and pieces, and it was sort of all going pretty cool. And I was just in awe because I'm just a mad Ford man.
Oh, yeah.
Will Davison was
and you're there
one
with
of my
those
heroes.
boys.
Yeah,
yeah.
Like, here I am just rubbing
me.
shoulders. Yeah, exactly. It was really cool.
Hanging out with the big
but
dogs.
also with pressure as well.
Massive.
Because we're living at Calder Park.
Yeah. And it's being filmed, so if you bugger it up.
Yeah, so every morning you'd be doing your morning stretches and getting on with your day, and you got a camera shoved in your face. So it was sort of
good media training.
Yeah, it was a good opportunity to, I guess, learn about how media works and what that life is like. But got my first drive in a supercar on the show.
Wow.
So
how was that?
And that was cool.
That would have been special.
So I made it to the semi-final, drove a supercar for the first time, passed it in flying colours. So it was between myself and Tim Macro in the finale, and managed to basically the criteria of the finale was like whoever does the fastest lap time at Calder Park within 5 laps.
Wow.
And I won the show by a 1/10 of a second. So got my first. So with that was meant to be a testing contract with Ford Performance Racing.
Yeah.
So I did my first test day out at Winton Motor Raceway in a Formula 4. In a V8 supercar with FPR. So I was driving Dave Reynolds' Bottle Falcon that he just won the Gold Coast 600 at the time in. So it was a real pinch myself moment, I guess, and got myself a foot in the door. And
because how old were you then?
so I would have been probably 17, 16, 17. So I'm still pretty baby-faced by then.
Young bloke.
Yeah. So, I couldn't believe it really, and everything
incredible.
was sort of falling, I guess, in my favour.
And you go, this is it. I've done it. I've made it. I'm in the big
I've got
time.
a foot in the door.
Yeah.
But,
neck minute.
neck minute. So famously they just signed Cam Waters to run FPR in the Super 2 series. So they actually didn't have a car available to run myself in Super 2 that following year. So Tim Edwards gave me Matt Stone's phone number and said, hey, you should probably give this guy a call. He's looking for a driver. And so I flew up to Queensland. Matt picked me up at the airport and took me to the workshop, and remember looking around as a 17-year-old, and we shook hands on a deal. Went home to mum and dad, and I said, all right, we've got to find $400,000.
That was an expensive flight.
It was a very expensive flight, and but we had to it was sort of just, it's now or never.
Yeah. And so that was, so Stone Brothers.
Yeah, so Matt had just basically walked away from running the team or working with the team at Stone Brothers, which was so Jimmy Stone being his dad and Ross Stone being his uncle. So huge royalty, Hall of Fame members of our sport and people that I just idolised and still do today. Got to sit down with them and sort of got a map of what could be achieved. And but it was obviously going to come at a cost as well. To run in a front running car and a front running team, it's like, all right, we got to raise some serious capital. So
that's what they needed for you to come on board.
Yep. We can look after you, but it's still going to cost X, Y, Z.
Yep.
And I knew that other people were knocking on his door, so I said, "Yep, lock me in."
Yep.
And he didn't really know what our situation was, and we didn't tell him that because we didn't want that to affect the deal to get it done. So. Literally shook hands on a deal and said, "All right,
okay, I got 400,000 zeros.
I got 400,000 problems in my life right now.
All the zeros are there, but I just need to get that 4 in front of it."
I remember We sort of hadn't really committed to the deal just yet, but I remember walking around and Dad was in denial. He said, no bloody way, obviously, as you would.
Absolutely.
And I remember walking around and we'd spoken to other people about, what it would cost running some other teams. And, they weren't the most competitive teams, but they were cheaper. And it sort of got to the point where it's like, well, we've only got one opportunity to do this. So we either do it well or don't do it at all. And in motorsport, you got to do things properly because otherwise you just set yourself up to fail. And
you learnt that with the Formula 4, didn't you?
Yeah, well, and that's exactly right.
Don't buy the cheap one.
We got that learning at a tender age. So, yeah, got to the point. I remember walking around the park with Mum and Dad. Mum, just that morning, she goes, "No, we just got to do it. We just got to commit." So I remember meeting with the bank, and we went back and forth, and we've remortgaged the house again.
Was this number 2?
So this is the second time. And it was pretty scary because we'd signed a contract for 7 rounds and it was going to cost XYZ per month. And we didn't and then we lost in the process of all this, we actually just lost the sponsorship with Fujitsu. So it was like, okay, shit, this is not good. So we'd signed a deal, mortgaged the house, just lost our major sponsor. Went to round 1 at Adelaide, which was the first time going to the Clipsal 500 as it was back then. Racing on a street circuit in a supercar with no money. And the bank had only just approved the loan after practice 1 on the Thursday afternoon. So it was pretty risky what we were doing, but is a risk that we had to take. So it was a pretty wild scenario, but yeah, we got through it. And I actually, happened to meet what would then turn out to be my major sponsor for the next 3 years, doing a track walk, and he was racing in the Touring Car Masters at the time, and just had a humble conversation with him. I didn't know who he was. I was just in awe of his Tirana and started talking to him about it. And
what a weapon! Just
thought he was a cool dude. And and then that after, because we had no sponsors on the doors that weekend, and he said, "Oh, what would it take to if I give you a couple grand?" A couple grand. I said, "Hey, we'll take whatever we can get." So we put iSeek on the doors, and that couple grand then turned out to be one of the best partnerships I've ever had in my motorsport career. So so Jason Gomersall, who was CEO of iSeek Communications at the time, and he then become my major back. Like 2014 was still a very tough year financially. Like we didn't have a major sponsor for 5 events. We then did a couple of deals at the end of the year that sort of made it happen, but that debt still existed up until start of this year.
Fuck.
So it's been something I've been paying off for essentially nearly 10 years. Sort of puts in place of
it
of
applies
the burden,
some context of what this takes,
of the pressure and commitment it takes to be at this level. So obviously we've got a probably a more unique and different scenario, but that's what it took. And then 4 years later, we won the Dunlop Super 2 title in 2017. And as a privateer, going up against the bigger teams in the supercar supporter program. So for us, that was a really special moment, and had the support from Jason, who was my major backer for in that time. And we then took on the challenge of setting up to run the supercars in 2018 as rookies for both team and driver.
Wow. So with Stone Brothers, just to clarify, so was that Super 2 or was that Supercars?
That was Super 2. So
Super
there was
2,
Stone Brothers Racing running in supercars.
Yeah.
But then Matt Stone himself went out on his own, running his own program. So it was fully satellite. But
Gotcha.
I guess when I joined the team at Matt Stone Racing, that was just when Stone Brothers had been sold to what was then Erebus Motorsport.
Yes.
So there really wasn't any link with a supercar affiliated team anymore.
Gotcha.
So it was really Matt Stone on himself running his own program. It was a cool journey, and like I then moved up to Queensland during this time, and I lived with Matt for a while. I lived with Jason for a while, living with sponsors, and basically just living at the workshop, learning off some great guys that had supercar experience knowledge, and it was a huge amount of work, but a real cool part of my life growing up.
In that transition, because going into that world and going into those fellas that are in and around that, how does it feel coming in as the fresh bloke? Do they go, here's another fella to go through the meat grinder, or is there a fair bit of love, or do they take a bit of time to warm to you? Like,
I think particularly back then there was definitely a boys' club up and down Supercars pit lane, and it was really hard to break in, even just to get in opening for a test day or anything. Like it almost doesn't exist like it does today. It's very, I think the opportunities that kids got now coming through the ranks, it's probably the best it's ever been. But yeah, I remember like 2014, 2015, like you never even went into the back of the pits of a Supercars team. You know, just it was frowned upon. So you were very isolated, I guess, in that upbringing. But I guess, you know, we just did everything. We probably did everything the hard way, but we made it happen, which was cool. But and then just as you said, working with those people in the Stone brothers, like Jimmy Stone was always at the workshop with Matt, and
where was that workshop?
So that was on
Stone?
Computer Road in Yatala.
Ah, good old Computer Road.
Yeah, so they're still there today, and that place has evolved from what was basically a tin shed with a green floor to something that's now fully commercialised, running 2 supercars in a Supercars Championship, and they do a great job.
It's amazing what exists in that little pocket in Yatala, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very much a motorsport hub, which is really cool.
It's incredible. Just dangerous at the pie shops there.
Yes.
So the end of that sort of Super 2 journey, so that was how many years?
So that was 4 years.
4
So
years.
2014 to 2017 is when we won
400
the title.
grand a year, or how did that end up?
Yeah, that's it. So, and then the final year we actually did a wildcard entry. So the Supercars actually changed the rules for Super 2 drivers where they could nominate 1 or 2 rounds if they wanted to, where they could run with the big boys as a privateer, which we did, and we did quite well. So that was my first shot.
What do they sting you for that?
Oh, well, we did it all on the cheap. So we tried to basically do it as cheap as possible. It was a local around. So for us being Queensland based, we raced to Ipswich.
A bit
so
easier.
we saved on flights and accommodation. Because the logistics alone is a huge portion of that cost.
Monstrous.
It's a big part of our business. So, saving on key elements like that, it was our test track. So we had prior knowledge of it. We got subsidised tyres from Supercars as part of that wildcard deal. So there's a lot of things that I guess have some incentives to make it happen.
Yeah.
But we still did it as a privateer entry. I think we got 19th in our first event out of 28 cars it was. So we still bet 10 guys that were racing full time, and that was our first time as a privateer, as a driver and team, which was it was a really cool weekend. So, and that was basically started to lay the foundation for both Matt Stone Racing going from Super 2 team to a Supercar team, which we then did in 2018. So we went through the whole process of trying to get a license, which we then leased off Jason Bright. So he owned the Racing Entitlements Contract, or REC as we call it in Supercar land. So we did that lease program, and got the team at MSR into Supercars, and got myself full time in the sport.
Wow.
In 2018.
So you guys worked together on that to actually
so
put the thing in.
We worked together. We basically, I think it was around probably March, April, we started talking about, hey,
bloody hell,
we pulled this off. We started talking about it over smoko and lunch, and then
how good are those conversations?
Yeah,
by
and
the way?
it's funny. There's a lot of people said, "Oh no, I don't think it's the right thing to do," but here we are.
Should be right.
6 years later, nearly. So.
But isn't that the best though? When you're chatting with the fellas, you're going, "Do you know what we should do? We should just send it and see what happens."
Yeah.
Isn't that wild though?
Yeah, and it was cool. It was a big undertaking, both financially and getting the capability within the team to then step up.
What's the commitment there, and understanding the licenses and that sort of stuff? Because how hard is it to gain access and then utilise that?
Very tough.
That's not an easy.
No, and that was the hard thing with Super 2 in those days. Like Gary Jacobson, who won the championship the year before, he won the title in Super 2, but there wasn't one spot available in Supercars Championship for him to step up.
Wow.
So that's why you do Super 2, because you want to get the Supercars. But then there's just no opportunities, because all these drivers are all on contract, or there's no movement within teams. So, and that was, I didn't want to get caught my pants down like that. So it became very much aware for me when, we were having a good year. We had a good year in 2016. We got third in the championship, very close to winning. And then 17, we're having an exceptional year, winning races, winning rounds, leading the championship. And we're like, all right.
We got this.
Again, there was no openings. And it was like, well, the only opening that we caught a sniff off was that Jason Bright was potentially going to retire, and he was looking to get out of the team that he was with his license. So that was basically started hassling him. Hey,
right.
So
you caught a whisper.
Yeah,
going around the pits.
There's always rumours, whether they're true or not, but you got to follow. You got to follow it out.
And then you just go and knock on his door, and you go,
so
"G'day, mate."
There's sort of a three-prong attack, I guess, between sort of Jason Gomersall, who was backing us. He was very much immersed in the team. Matt Stone and myself, between the three of us, was sort of, attacking
full on
every opportunity that we could get to try and put a supercar program together. And fortunately, we did, because I got myself on the grid in supercars. And 6 years later, that was, we had a tremendously tough year. We went from winning the championship in 2017 to having, I guess a reality check in 2018. We probably didn't have the equipment that we needed, and we had staff issues and so forth. But that was then we had a really successful 2019 off the back of that. So it was a tough year getting into sport, but we learnt, we moved forward, we fell forward, and 2019 was a good year. And
what are the barriers? So when you go up and you've gone from being a very successful, sort of second tier, and then going up into the big game, what did you see as the gaps that were then blindingly obvious?
The biggest thing is just the resources and knowledge at the end of the day.
Gotcha.
We were confident with the engine. Like we had a good engineer, was McDougall, who was backing me then. We got a few other extra people, but we just didn't have the resources starting up. And unfortunately, we brought a car that we thought was going to be a good thing, and unfortunately wasn't. That was a bit of a miscommunicated mistake that we made. So we actually scrapped that car. Not scrapped it, but we moved that car on before the season actually ended, and then started an alliance with Triple Eight Race Engineering, who had a customer model which fitted our business model perfect, because we didn't have the engineers full time to be able to get the competitiveness that we needed. So doing this technical alliance with Triple Eight was a good step forward for our team, because we're still a very small team, single car team, so the only single car team on the grid at that stage. And so 2019 we started with a bang. We actually put it inside the top 10 in the shootout at Adelaide, out-qualified both Wing Cup and SVG, who were the factory Triple Eight pilots.
Settle down, Chief.
So it was sort of like, this is basically the first step of MSR Mini business, and for myself as well.
Wow.
And to do that straight away with the that increased capability in 2019 was a really cool statement to make.
And how on earth did that happen? Because and I'm again endlessly fascinated, because you've obviously realised that the car you had isn't great. How did the conversation open with Triple Eight? How did that even come about?
Well, that was something that we'd worked on in 2016 and 2017 on the side. We went a different direction for 2018. Unfortunately, wasn't the right direction to take. But we then quickly reversed that, and then fortunately, we still had a good relationships there with Roland, and Roland was really good through that process. And Jason, that's where Jason was exceptionally good, basically making shit happen,
helping to negotiate that. Because again, having been through their facilities and seeing the level that they're working at,
exactly,
mate, they got some good stuff going on there.
Yeah, and that's why arguably they've been the best team in supercars for the last 2 decades now, because they operate at a high standard and they're all about performance, and they know how to maximise every element of the industry. So love them or hate them, winning. They are winning for a reason.
Well, absolutely, and you see the high level of R&D, and that's the big thing.
Starts at the top. So
at those high levels of motorsport, mate, that's extraordinary. Okay, so Matt Stone Racing, Technical Alliance with Triple Eight, and then you bring the Thunder.
Yeah, that's it. So no, 2019 was good, but then also bad, because my time with MSR was up. MSR needed to go in a different direction, and I wasn't part of that program. So it was sad to leave MSR for that. What had been a big part of my life from 2014,
massive,
end of 2013 to 2019. So
that is enormous.
And basically lived with Matt. Jimmy took me under his wing and lived at the workshop. So it consumed a huge part of that period. So it was a sad note, but then also had an opportunity to go to Brad Jones Racing for 2020. So 2020 was obviously an interesting year for everyone in our world.
Yes.
COVID hit, and I just started with a new team, moved to Melbourne, and then was living out of a suitcase afterwards. So then, basically started traveling with the team, living it out of hotel rooms. And it was quite cool in a way, because it was a great way for me to build that relationship up with the new team, because what else do you do? We had a meal allowance. We're living off a meal allowance, traveling around the country, hanging out with everyone that just wanted to go car racing. So we were really fortunate as an industry. Obviously, we had that first spell there where our industry in doom and gloom of shut down for 3-4 months, and we were doing E-Series and all sort of stuff to try and keep wheels turning in our industry.
Yeah.
And then we went to Sydney, which was essentially round 2, round 3 for us. So got my first and only podium in Supercars at that event. So that was really cool. So we got a third place there.
Nice.
We're actually on track the weekend before to actually be on track for probably first or second, but we had a roll bar failure, which was shattering. That put us out of contention in that particular race. But we went back there the following weekend, got my first podium, and then it was a big circus. We ended up going to Darwin, lived at Darwin for like 5 or 6 weeks. Then we went to Townsville for 2 weeks. 2 weekends at a time. So got my first pole position at Townsville, so that was really cool.
That's awesome.
So we had, I guess, had somewhat of a breakthrough year in what was a pretty messed up year, let's face it. Good, bad, and different. But I really enjoyed it. It was a cool year. 2021, I guess, interrupted with COVID again. We had a lot of top fives. Didn't get a podium that year. Unfortunately, I was moved on from BJR. So there was an opportunity where they basically needed to bring in some extra money into the team, and I wasn't part of that deal. So got pushed to the curb at the 11th hour. And I guess the really cool thing when that happened, I was then actually taken back to Matt Stone Racing the following season.
Really?
So after 2-year hiatus with another team, Matt took me back with open arms, and we reunited again in 2020. What was that? 2022. Yeah. So
getting the band back together.
Yeah, so we got the band back together. We started the year really strong. I think we were 8th after round 5 in the championship, which was really cool for our team. We had a bit of a struggle in the back half of the year, and I was sort of in a position where got provided with another cool opportunity to then sign up with Cool Drive Racing with the Blanchard family. So race with them this year, and introduction to Gen 3, which has been a massive change for all of Supercars and the top tier of our Australian motorsport. Of the way as we know it sort of got flipped on its head with new cars, new engines, new suspension, new criteria and rules. It's been a challenging year, here we are.
Mate, it's been a hard.
That's my 10-year journey, I guess, summed up to a degree. So
bloody big journey, and it has been it's been an odd year, hasn't it? Because with Supercars continuing to evolve, and this is the thing, I watch the news sort of blowing up every little part of it, but I'm just excited to see top tier Australian motorsport. I wouldn't care if we were racing lawnmowers. I'd be in for a bit of that too.
Yeah, you and me both.
Yeah, exactly. I don't care what it is. It's just wonderful to see people doing things at the highest level, and it has been hard to watch some of the struggles this year as teams have really, again, just to an outsider, it looks like it's sort of really floundered with things just not fully lining up. And again, you don't even have to give me your personal opinion on this, but it's just it seems like it really has taken that time to bed in. But it feels like there's good trajectory underway.
Oh look, when there's change, there's always going to be change. There's always going to be difficulties, and you're going to upset people along the way. No word of a lie. That happens every day of the week, no matter what business you're in. But I guess the thing with Gen 3 this year is that it put a lot of pressure on the teams, and a lot of good people within the industry were feeling that pressure because there was late nights, a lot of frustrations, and that was before we'd even gone racing yet. So it's been a challenging year for our industry, no word of a lie. But I think there is some good points about the sport as well. I think probably the things that are holding us back at the moment, they're all fixable. Look, I don't want to talk bad about the sport that I love.
And that's the thing, neither do I.
There's been so much negativity this year, which is, some things that are probably deserved. Hopefully as a sport and as an industry, we can learn from it and make it better. That's the underlying factor right now. That's the way I look at it. But
I agree.
Yeah, hopefully in time we'll get back to what would be V8 Supercars at the peak of its
premier series without it. And I think that's the really hard thing, because again, the cheap seats are always the loudest. And I'll say, to anyone that'll listen, any moron can point out the problems. It takes no gift, no talent, no skill to stand there and point out problems.
Yep.
The gift is in the solutions.
Yeah,
that's the talent.
And that's the thing. I never want to be the problem. I want to be the solution. No. So there's been a lot of work like behind the scenes, behind cameras, behind articles. Like,
absolutely.
There's been so much, like whether that's drivers trying to make a change and make a stance and what we feel should be better, whether it's team owners, whether it's the mechanics, the engineers, like everyone has worked tirelessly on this program. So there's a lot of I guess stories outside that people probably just never understand, to be fair, because they're not in the inner sanctum. They're not in the business trying to fix these problems. So, look, hats off to the people that have really embraced this year and supported us, and for the people who are obviously talking negative about it. Hopefully, we can prove you wrong in the future. So that's
show you what's
say.
up.
Yeah,
because it's still, mate, it's good racing. The cars look great. And I must say, I enjoyed the blue Cool Drive livery through the year, and then the red Arc livery
Yes, it looked
in
it
the
looked spot
last
on, didn't
round.
it? It was
Mate,
yeah.
it
I'm a
looked,
Ford man at heart, so it really sort of pulled the heartstrings of having a blue Mustang
Ford,
in a
Mustang.
Supercars championship.
Because they're a bloody good looking car.
They are. No, they're sexy cars, and look, they still go just as good. You know, I think there's probably some changes we need to probably do with the tyres, for instance. I think that will probably help our racing moving forward. But you know, Dunlop has still been a huge contributor to our sport. So certainly not slagging Dunlop in particular.
No.
I just think we need to probably remodel and rethink about what tyre we use for our sport, because unfortunately they just overheat too quickly.
Yeah.
You know, you can put a softer compound on, but it's the actual surface temperature that kills the racing. It's not so much the degradation; it's the surface temp.
And is that just an Australia problem because it's so bloody hot?
Well, it is bloody hot here, but yeah, there is a lot of tyre technology that we can tap into and certainly make our product better. So I think once we get that right, I think the racing will be like, we've already seen that we can follow cars closer than ever before, and it gives us the ability to pass. And there was a lot of people that were probably a bit negative about the removal of the anti-roll bars in the cars to be able to adjust it. But I think what it has done, it's now more than ever, it's made that communication relationship closer with the driver and engineer. Because if the engineer gets it a little bit wrong, normally you just tune it up on the fly and you'd be there or thereabouts and you have a good race. Now it's like, you get it wrong, you're stuck with a shit box for 2 hours.
Wow.
And the thing's not handling well, it's understeering, it might be oversteering, it might be doing both. And you got what you got, you can't tune it up. You might be able to make a little ride height adjustment in the pits, but it's more of a band-aid over an open wound sometimes. So so I think that has helped mix the racing up a little bit this year. And the cars are trickier to drive because we haven't got the aero. So, you know, they move around a bit more under brakes when the tyres do get hot and all that sort of stuff. So
That just
certainly
adds
some
a
good
bit
stuff.
of flavour, doesn't it?
It does. And I think that's why we've seen, even though we've been held back in some ways this year with, you know, dramas with certain things, the racing still has been pretty good. So
been a great year
yes,
of
there's been, you know, I hate to bring up the word parody, there's been some dramas there, but that was always going to happen. You know, think about, it's the biggest reset the sport's had in 20 plus years,
Correct.
going away from, you know, a pushrod V8 that we've fine-tuned to the absolute thou in every parameter, to something that's bold, new and different. And then putting up against an LS3 that's completely different to the quad overhead cam V8 that we use in our Mustangs. So that in itself has had its challenges. And yeah, there's a bit of work about parity, but you know, Supercars, they got cars in a wind tunnel as we speak over in America.
Figuring it out.
They're sorting it out. So it's not all bad. And
It's not.
yeah,
and
it'll be good.
Watching how hard you went in that last round and how well the car performed, like it really felt like, I don't know, it just looked like it worked. Again,
Yeah, it all started sinking for us.
Yeah.
Probably a little bit too late for me,
bit bloody
unfortunately.
late, you
Yeah,
go.
bit bloody late. But
Would have been helpful earlier, but
Yeah,
you know.
no,
that-
and we had some good success at the start of the
Yeah.
year. Like we got a fourth at Perth, and we were only just shy of missing a podium over there. And you know, we had a pretty difficult middle of the season. We had some dramas going on behind the scenes, but you know that happens. So
Absolutely.
yeah, you just got to stay positive. And you know, we fought to the end, and yeah, we had two. You know, we're on track for 2 top 10s on both days, on Saturday and Sunday. So
hauling. That's it. I'm watching on telly at home going, bloody pumping.
yeah, so you know, for us, we're still a small single car team at the end of
Yeah.
pit lane. So for us to be, you know, mixing up the best and beating some big names and big teams,
Mate,
you know,
feels good.
We hold a lot of pride of that.
Feels
so
real good.
yeah, it was good.
And the car looks great on 2 wheels, just quietly.
Yeah, yeah.
Like whenever you can punch it off the curb.
Yeah, Adelaide's the best for photos, that's for sure.
Top tier to the photographers that sit there and nail that. And you blokes are just up in, those are the
Full
best
flight, yeah.
photos. I'm like, yeah, every time I see them, I'm like, that's so good.
Yep.
How hard is it when it comes back down again?
Yeah,
Is
they're brutal.
is that
yeah,
hard to catch?
it looks wild when you're watching on TV, and it feels 10 times worse in the car.
Yeah, it looks horrible. Because, I
it's
mean,
pretty-
that's
pretty rough on the
reasonable
body.
distance when
Yeah,
you
that's
look
it.
at.
Yeah, you jump in a car 300 mils sometimes off the
Yeah.
air, if not more than that. And
It's not a bloody
like
rally
anything,
car.
they land hard because they're
Yeah.
stiffly sprung, and you feel that force. And
And you'd feel it
your
straight through your
back
back.
and
Because
your-
that's the thing, because you're bolted into the
yeah,
chassis.
that's it. You're bolted to that seat, and it's not a lounge chair you're sitting in. You're sitting in a 2-part, you know, molded piece of foam, essentially. So yeah, there's no room for comfort, but that's
Well,
that's our game.
we appreciate that sacrifice to look that cool.
Yeah, thank you.
Mate, I don't know if you can throw any light on what you're doing going forward, because obviously rounded out with Cool Drive for the end of the year.
Yeah.
You're going to tinker around in some things next year?
Yeah. I won't be a stranger next year. So yeah, as I said, it's been 6 years full time in the sport as a supercar driver, and I probably haven't achieved the things that I personally want to achieve. And like anything, if you keep trying to do the same thing and expect better results, and that's the definition of insanity, I guess. So for me, moving forward, taking a bit of a sidestep for next year. So I won't be full-time racing supercars, but I'll still be a co-driver next year. So still keeping my, I guess, finger in the pie.
So where's your co-drive next year?
Can't announce that just yet. But
that's right.
It's a work in progress at the moment.
Excellent.
So yeah, hopefully in the next week or so, I have something locked in.
advised.
Yeah, so watch this space. But and then outside of supercars, dabbling in a few different categories as well. So
Lawnmower racing?
Yeah. Oh, hey, why not? Let's do it.
That dirt track out at...
I like my dirt track racing.
Mate,
so.
I drove past those blokes the other day, and they're out there just chucking it full sand in those cars.
Yeah.
Like, that looks...
Yeah, well, I started in dirt
awesome.
karting, so that's
you?
a bit of me. So,
And I must say, I fully supported SVG's AU Falcon, whatever that mud bashing was.
Yeah.
What on earth? Do you even know where that was? That was incredible.
I don't know if it's on his family farm or someone else's farm, but basically it's just they cut a track into the side of a hill over in New Zealand, and they get all their Kiwi mates and
because dead set, that's the racing.
Build a couple of cool cars and go racing.
That's the racing.
Yeah.
Like
So,
buy the car for $2,000 off the internet, and then
put a cool paint job on it and
then send it.
go crazy. Yeah. So
it's just like those old days of karting, but a little less stressful.
Yeah, that's it. So, and outside of that, got a few different ideas. So probably going to dabble in a bit of sports marketing and try and work. Essentially, for me next year, try and work out what does Todd want to do in say the next 5 to 10 years. Start setting myself up outside of racing as well. I still want to be involved in motorsport, and
Have you got a vision for that? Like when you sort of go, what's a 40-year-old Todd going to be doing?
Exactly right, and that's I guess that's what I'm trying to work out. I don't have the answers to it just yet, but for me next year, sort of dabble in a few different things and sort of see, do I enjoy it? Do I want to do this? Do I want to do this for the next 20 years? Or do I go, nah, I hate it? So dabble in a few different projects. I'm also trying to set up essentially a bit of a side project, I don't have a name for it yet, but call it Todd's Garage, for instance. So working with some cool brands, cool projects. I've got a restoration project that I'm working on at the moment, which is my grandfather's Mark I Ford Zephyr.
Oh.
So that's a ground up restoration, and basically trying to work with some cool brands where essentially capture the build, showcase their brands and products, and do something on the side, which is a little bit different.
You can talk to me endlessly about this, because this is one of the things I was really looking forward to getting to, was you've obviously got a bit of joy for putting a bit of love back into the old cars.
Yeah.
Talk me through all of this.
Cool cars and old cars and muscle cars, classic cars, they make me excited. Always have. I've always had a passion for that sort of stuff. So still love tinkering, working on cars. It's a big part of who I am, I guess. So I've had the Mark I Zephyr since I was 12. So I got that off the family farm, and obviously racing got very serious. So it never got any love when I was a kid. And then I moved out of home, and it sat at mum and dad's place for years and years. And I've sort of been working on it on and off for the last few years. And now it's getting pretty serious. So that's just got it back from the sandblasters just recently. It's an epoxy primer.
I did see the photos.
Yeah, it's.
I am following.
I got some work to do, but most of the running gear is almost complete and everything else. So, that's
are you
in the
keeping
works.
it original? Or
Keeping it all as original. So, the engine will be as it came out in 1954 with a few extra specs, but basically make sure that it's going to run as mechanically good as it can, and still be back in its original 50s lime green.
Oh, wow. So that's the vision for the project,
red interior,
as it was.
Yeah. So
wow.
Bring it back to life, basically. So that's really cool. And I guess a bit of an impulsive buy that I got, which was during COVID in 2020, is a 1977 Ford XC station wagon. So it's a proper POV back wagon. It's got no extras. It's got no radio, no AC, no power windows. It's only got winding windows. Got the one revision mirror. Yes, it's basically
poor man's aircon, where you got the arm out the window.
That's exactly right. So I'm getting stuck to the vinyl seats. So it's awesome. It's big. It's as I said, it's yellow, so it stands out. And it was all original. That was why I got that one. So, picked that out from a property at Gatton, but it spent most of its life in country New South Wales and Inverell. So it's been original one owner. It was all in original paint. Like the paint was faded and dull, but the best thing about a baked acrylic is that you can buff it up and it come up pretty good. Had a little bit of rust in the tailgate and in the passenger door, but as they did from factory.
As they do.
It was a pretty dry, honest car, to be fair, and that was why I got it, because
Well,
I
a
could
farm
see the
car's a
potential.
good car. If they've been inland, well, they say, mate, dust not rust.
Yeah, exactly right. So, there was a lot of dust, a lot of dirt underneath. But, sort of that's been my little side project in the last couple of years. And, that's just a fun cruiser.
Because that's been a classic project. Did you pull that one all the way down, or have you just sort of tried to keep it?
Preserve it. Like, I haven't had the engine out of it. Just, it's amazing. You know, like, car haven't ran in 20-odd years. And one late night, a few beers and tinkering away. And the thing started running and
change the plugs for your fluids and should be
we
right.
didn't even change the plugs. We just
get out.
We just flushed the oil out of it and put decent oil in it and a bit of Motul and she was purring like a kitten. Just sat there idling away. For how cool is this? Just
this is why we love old cars,
basic
mate.
car technology.
So simple.
Yeah, it was cool. And I giving it obviously a big birthday now. So it's got new brakes, new bearings, and all the mechanicals all sort of sorted on it. But still got the original paint, still original interior. So just put some stockies on it. So it's got the skinny cheese cutter tyres on it, and still got these standard suspension, so it still flops around a bit, moves around, and doesn't go around corners very well. But that's all part of the fun.
That's the charm.
Yeah, that's it.
And absolutely no feel in the steering. Have you got a big chunk of play? Or?
No, the steering box actually pretty good in it. To be fair, so I'm pretty lucky. So
must have been an accident.
I've got lucky. Put it that way. But that was why I brought it, because it was one of those things where it was too good to be true. Yeah. And I had a guy that come with me at the time, and he's a bit of a Ford collector, and he says, Todd, well, you got yourself a problem here, because he said, if you don't buy it, I will. So you better make your mind up what you want to do. So I thought, all right, well, I can't let that happen.
No. And see,
look, I'm glad I got it, because I probably wasn't the best thing to do, because I still don't have a house and still trying to save and probably put too much money into cars. But sorry, Alice.
It's what we do.
But here I am.
Mate,
so.
they know that when they meet you.
Yeah. So working on that. I said, look, Alice, when we get our shed, I'll buy you a Volkswagen Beetle. How about that? So she loves her old cars too, which is cool. So I probably brainwashed her a little bit, but
so she has excellent taste as well.
Yeah, she's got great taste. So it's all part of the fun. Yeah.
So I did see that car also got itself a little magazine feature.
It did, which was pretty cool.
Talk me through that.
Yeah, well, Australian Muscle Car Magazine. So the producer and the people that write the articles, they also do the Bathurst magazine. So every annual Bathurst book that comes out for the 1000, and I did have a quick chit chat, and they put an article in place, and that was all well and good. And off the record, I said, we hear you got you got a project car and you got the wagon, and they said, would you be interested in having a chat and talking about it? I said, I love talking about them. Probably that more than the car racing, to be honest.
That's a good bit.
And so we had a chat, and I said, look, it might be just a single page feature, but we'll put something else. I don't care. That's great. More the merrier. And then the article come out, and it's 7 pages long, and the big wagon's got the centerfold in the middle of Australian Muscle Car Magazine. So I don't know if it's still the current issue or not, but it's been out for the last month, and. Because that was a magazine that I always bought as a kid. I love the history. Like, I'm a big, I'm a race fan at heart, still am. And I love the history of the sport. So that's where that magazine was so good, because you learned about the heroes, about the cars and the knowledge. And I'm basically a walking encyclopedia for, I guess, Australian touring car championship history and cars of today, particularly Fords. I'm a bit of a tragic. So, yeah. Here I am.
I'm all about all of this. I think that's just wonderful. But it also needs people to carry these stories forward. And that's actually one of the things that I really love is as people, again, you take care of that again, and you're sharing those stories going forward so that they sort of don't get lost to the passage of time.
That's cool. Yeah. And
it's very special. Have you got any other projects underway or just in the back of the head?
Maybe.
Yeah.
There's definitely burning desire just to get the Zephyr done, because it's been such a long-term project, and I'd love to do it as a tribute. My grandfather, unfortunately, he passed away just before I was born, who bought the car brand new. But Grandma, I'd love to try and get the car done for Grandma and show her that the car's not just a bucket of bolts. It can run and it can drive, and one day I'd like to get married in it too. So that'd be pretty cool. So there's a bit of a burning desire there to get that done. But outside of probably the Zephyr and the wagon, I've still got the Nissan Pintara, which I learned to drive in as a kid.
Yes.
And I guess that's a bit of a it's still running and it still just needs a paint. It's the
What motor's in those? I can't.
It's got the 2.4. I can't think what is it, the KA24 I think they call it. So good engine, front wheel drive, but it's got sky blue, baby blue, whatever color you want to call it. It's faded, so I'll probably just give that a paint job, put some cool wheels
hideous.
and brakes on it, and put a big potato shooter on the back of it and have a bit of fun with it. So that can be my Jap car. I can have some fun with.
Well, you need that, but so you need a rear-wheel drive one as well. That's the other.
Well, that's probably the only sticking point, but
yeah, but should be right, mate.
it's all good.
Couple
It's
of
all part of the
Maggers
fun. Yeah. If I can make it torque steer, I'll be happy.
Look, if you can make that is still very entertaining.
Yeah,
Powerful front-wheel drive.
Yeah, that's it. And put a smile on my face.
Does keep you excited.
Yeah.
Now, this Todd's Garage thing. Tell me about this. How far along is this? You sort of got some production underway, or is this all still top secret?
No,
mate?
it's not top secret, and it's a bit rough and ready to be fair.
Rough and ready's how they all start.
I got some cool, ambitious ideas. Whether they work or not, I got no idea. But just it's a sponsor of mine. I got a space there with border towing, and got a little section of his warehouse where I've just got all my shit there basically.
It's a dream.
Yeah, that's every
fantastic.
man's dream. So yeah, sort of setting it up at the moment to have a decent workshop space, and whether or not I commercialize it heavily, and I've got a couple of brands that are sort of looking at getting involved. But yeah, we'll see what happens. So sort of just treading carefully. I don't want to get overcommitted and let people down as well. So very much aware that if I do it properly, I've got to do it well, like anything I try to do in life. So, we'll see. We'll see. Because biggest thing for me is trying to use the Todd's Garage to try and complement. Obviously, I do what I do in racing, and that's one thing. And I've been really fortunate to work with some amazing brands like Motul, who's been an amazing sponsor of mine the last 2 years. But going racing and seeing their products in the top tier of the sport is one thing, but also stemming it back to, I guess, we are real people at the end of the day. And that's a big thing that I try to push is that, yes, I go race supercars for a living, but I still do an oil change on my Ford Ranger, and I still like putting a car up on a hoist and tinkering. And I guess, and that's what I think brands are getting smarter today of how they want to be seen and perceived in the market. So yeah, being seen in the lights and being seen on TV is one thing, but then actually utilizing the product and doing it with some cool projects behind the scenes. I think
absolutely
there's a market to capture there. Hopefully no one steals my idea now. But that's sort of where my head's at. And whether it comes to life, we'll see. But I think it's a cool way to at least sort of capture the work that I'm doing and what I have been really fortunate to achieve. I guess working in supercars, a bit of more of a household name, so to speak, without trying to pump my tires up too much. But people know who I am, they know what I do, and people are keen to see. I guess that was probably the singing point for me. People wanted to see what I was doing behind the scenes, and I always try to promote whatever I do in social media as much as I can. I'm pretty accessible. I probably commercialized every aspect of my life, unfortunately. Unfortunately, the way you want to look at it. There's some good and bad stuff that comes with social media, but I guess try and capture it all and let people enjoy what I do, and whether they like or hate it or not, we'll find out. But
Do you find that you get a bit of grief on the internet? Is it?
Look, I've been pretty lucky, to be fair. It's a pretty wonderful and dark place all at the same time. You've got to be very careful how you perceive yourself in the media, and it's a lot of work, because all it takes is one bad interview, one bad podcast, or you say something bad about one person, and that could create an army of hate. So that's something I've always really tried to be mindful of. I still try to be myself. I don't try to, put myself on a pedestal or anything like that. I still just try to be who I am, or be who I've always been and what I believe in. I feel like you've always got to be respectful. You always got to be humble. And I've always been grateful for the people that have helped get where I am. They're my rules, I guess, if you call it. And I think people have taken a liking to that. So I've been really fortunate, particularly in the supercar space, to have a really supportive and genuine support base. Some people rally behind me pretty hard, and that's probably good and bad as well. But I think people see that I've got a good name in the media, which is for me, it's really important.
No, absolutely, and that's one of the things I see is you've got a real man of the people about you. There's no big attitude, big ego. There's none of that sort of stuff. Like, you're just there doing the work, grateful to be there, and happy to share. As I said, I'm sitting here with, supercar driver in my, crabby little home-built podcast studio, and I feel very fortunate that you give me that time, mate. That and again, that's a credit to you and the work that you've done and the way that you've built it. And to me, that's the example that needs to be shown to people coming up in this, is that humility, gratitude, manners, kindness, these things
100%.
are crucial, especially if you find your way to the upper echelons.
Yeah, and it's it's just in life in general. I think, as I say, it's free to be nice.
Correct.
It's free to say, it doesn't take much to say hello to someone and just be
nice.
Just be a good person. It's not that
shocking.
Don't have to, there's enough negativity in the world out there, so don't add to it. No. So I always say, if someone's got a problem, then far out. I've got enough of my own problems. I don't need more. So
familiar.
so and there's two ways you can look at it. You can either kick your feet across the ground and say, why me? Or you can go, oh well, just fix it.
Should be right. Figure it out.
Move on. It's all good. So and I've been I've been very fortunate to experience the things that I've experienced and have the support from certain people and certain brands, and that all makes life easier. Don't get me wrong, but there's still a lot of work that goes on.
Absolutely, there
nothing's
is no free lunch.
100%,
and that's one of the biggest things I saw as people brought on bigger sponsors. They think that the hard part's attracting the sponsor. Mate, getting them's the easy part compared to actually keeping them and doing the right thing.
Yeah, servicing a brand, and especially if today, like even in the last 10 years, sponsorship back then to even now is totally different.
Totally different.
The way we do content, the way we do social media, and the way we do activations, it's massive. So really, for me, that's probably 90% of my workload is working with brands, working with sponsors, in how we do that, and try and do it well, obviously, because it's a competitive market out there. It's a dog eat dog. One minute you got a sponsor, next thing it's on someone else's cart because they got a better deal and a better opportunity. So you always got to try and keep presenting well and keep offering better opportunities and
just push. But see, I've seen you do a lovely job at that as I've followed your racing in particular this year. I've seen the effort that you've put into that. And again, it's a lovely reminder to people that are interested in all these things, just what it takes, that it's not just, the physical preparation, the mental preparation, the team preparation. It's that, it never stops.
No, it doesn't.
It is your whole life.
Yeah, it does. And the way I look at it, it's like if you stop, there's someone else out there. There's someone else out there doing what you're not doing.
They're killing.
And that's, I guess, for me, I've always found it pretty hard to switch off. But you do need to get that balance in your lifestyle right to be able to deal with that continuous, because it is pressure at the end of the day. So it's a pressure and it's always at the foresight of your mind. So you can create a pretty sizable migraine if you're not careful. So, it's all part of the program. But, we're talking about race cars and classic cars, and could be much bigger problems in my life than just that. So it's all
good problems to have, aren't
exactly.
they? Todd, I'm very grateful for you making the time today, mate. I know I've said that a few times, but I really am. I'm also conscious of your time. So, mate, I wanted to say a very big thank you for you coming in here today. Mate, is there anything you wanted to add before we start working towards wrapping this up?
Look, I think the biggest thing is just, while I got you on here, is just, thanks for your time, but also all the listeners that tuned in and have a listen to what I have to say, and hopefully they might learn something about me or take something away from my journey. So, obviously just a huge thanks to everyone that continues to back me and support me, whether that's through membership program that I run online, to my sponsors and my partners, and also the Supercar affiliated partners as well. There's so many people that contribute to my dreams and my passion and my journey. So, forever grateful. So thank you.
Todd, if people want to follow you and keep up to date with the news that you can't announce yet about things that may or may not be happening, how can people follow you or get involved or become a sponsor? Because again, I chipped in for the team. I'm a Todd Hazelwood Gold sponsor 2023.
That's it.
And I was telling Todd beforehand, I got 2 birthday cards this year. Oh, sorry, 3. My son gave me one. But externally, I got a birthday card from Todd, and then I got one from my mortgage broker, Hamish. So I was very touched.
That's good.
Mate, how can people get onto all these things?
Yeah, no, thank you. There's a couple of ways, I guess, if you want to get involved and support the program. So, I run an online membership program. So we got, bronze, silver, and gold package. So, in the process of putting all the details together for next year as we speak. But, in the new year, I'll be launching that. So we've got packages that start at $100 to $500, and obviously they come with a range of inclusions and benefits to get something out of it and enjoy the ride. So that's from a membership point of view. And then we also got the opportunity if you want to get involved, whether that be a product partner or an outright investor or team sponsor with our racing program, or something that you want to sponsor me personally, there's also that opportunity as well. So that can all be accessed through my personal website. So it's just toddhazelwood.com. Or if you want to rep some merchandise or support me that way, you can also head to shop.toddhazelwood.com as well. So I've got a range of personal merchandise on there that you can purchase, and all that helps fuel the dream and keeps the wheels turning in my industry. So thank you.
Well, that's it. I've seen yourself and your partner. I've seen you guys modelling fresh swag.
I do my best
on your travels. I'm like, mate, supercar driver, male model. I mean, just get out of town. Is there anything you can't do?
Best model. I think Alice does a better job than me at that one, but things you do.
And on the socials, you're just at Todd Hazelwood, is it?
Yeah. So at Todd, I'm trying to think now.
Yeah.
Yes, I think it's Todd Hazelwood Racing, but it should come under as Todd Hazelwood on Facebook. Watch out for all the fake accounts, because they'll try and steal your money. So if you ever get an email asking for money, that is not me.
That won't be you.
That's not me. So so just watch out for that one. So just look out for the verified Todd Hazelwood on all the social media. And if you want to follow my restoration work, then hit up on my YouTube as well.
So what's your YouTube?
It's just Todd Hazelwood.
Todd Hazelwood.
Yeah,
all
so
right.
just hit up Todd Hazelwood. And follow my builds.
I'll throw all of those things in the show notes for this, so you can access all of those directly through. But Todd, thank you, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure, and it's been a real pleasure to follow your journey this year and be a very small part of it. I had my name on the side of the Cool Drive truck. It made me feel very special. Mate, it's been really lovely, and I'm very excited to see where this journey goes next.
Yeah, no, thank you. No, watch this space, and looking forward to the next chapter.
Well, that's it for today on the All Red Everything podcast. We'll catch you next time.